This morning we're going to hear from a number of speakers telling stories about Stan's life. And so we begin by inviting his son Jay to share words with us about memories of his father.
On behalf of my father and my family, I want to thank you all for being here today and for honoring my dad with your presence. Thanks also to the all-star spiritual team that has gathered to conduct this service. He's always been a ladies' man, so it's good that most of the team are women. No offense, I think. You'd be very proud of the turnout today, but the truth is you could probably fill the swamp in Gainesville with people whose life he's touched. He took pride in how many friends he had, and had a contest with his dear friend Alan Goldfarb to see who knew more people at the Boat Arts Festival. Alan threw in the towel within 30 minutes. I don't know who would want to challenge what's in this room today, so you'll be going to the grave with the title Dad. My dad's passing is a loss for everyone who knew him, and for the world of such a genuinely good person. He had an amazing heart. You would have to in order to sustain his diet without any heart issues. He left an impression on people in each interaction, and it was always positive. As Rabbi Fish alluded to, like a positive force blowing through the world, bringing a smile to all along the way. I have personally been oscillating between being so sad for such an enormous loss to anyone who knew him, and celebrating a truly amazing life that has touched so many people in such a meaningful way. I imagine it would be like that for a while. As heartbroken as we all are for his passing, my dad would not want us to mourn him, or maybe just a little to know that we cared. But more importantly, he would want us to celebrate his life. And his life is one to be celebrated and held as an example of how to do it right. He and I always had a special relationship, and I know there are countless others who can say the same. To me, he couldn't have been a better father, but he has always been much more than that. He was one of my closest friends and confidants, even shocking my friends by coming and partying with us in college and on my bachelor party. He always fit in under any circumstance. The lines between family and friend blurred with my dad, and a similar reflection is true in the other direction, as I know that many people in this room felt like family to him, even though they weren't blood. He was gracious enough to share himself and his life so openly and generously with us all, treating everyone like family. I wanted to in particular acknowledge his Pyland family who are here today, but also his handball family, his more recent B&I family, his Miami Heat family, my friends who considered him family, and surely many others. It is incredibly appropriate that he was a family attorney, as he truly excelled in the topic of family. There's a saying in Sweden, where my mice is from, that a loved child has many names. If we needed any more evidence of how loved he was, we should look no further than this. Stanley, Stan, Stanley Morton, Stan the Man, Stan Boy, Stanimal, Big Brother, Dad, Pops, Paparoonie, Faux Pop, Padre, Newmark, Newbie, Rex, Zalman Mordecai, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. He will always be alive in our hearts and memory. We have too many of those and have learned too much from him for that not to be the case. I will think of him when we watch Gators and Heat games, eat at our favorite restaurants together, and watch boats in the bay, which is something he's liked to do with my daughter Hannah, and surely many other things. I'm not sad for my dad, as he always told me how blessed he felt, and that he had lived a pure, full, and happy life. For years he has said that he would die happy any day now, given how happy he had been in his life. He said many times how grateful he felt, and that how he had lived a great life. In particular, he's recently said this a number of times to Adise on their morning walks around Grove Isle. If he died, that we'd do so with no regrets and with full satisfaction. I'm also not sad for myself or my sister, as we were so blessed to have him as our dad, in my case for 39 years. We have a relationship that was much greater than that of a father, as I said. I will miss that, but feel so fortunate to have had it at all. I am sad for Adise. They've been really great life partners over the last 11 years. And I'm sad for them both that they couldn't further develop that relationship. Feels like it's ended way too prematurely. I thank you, Adis, for being a loving and wonderful partner to him and for bringing him so much happiness. I'm most sad for my kids, who have only had the opportunity to spend a short time with him. But at the same time, I will now view it as my responsibility to set a similar example for them as he has for me. I will draw strength from the example he has set, and I'm sure ask myself many times, what would Dad do? Thankfully, he has armed me with some of his great life wisdom, and I will share some of that with you today. Things have come full circle for he and I. He told me that he cried tears of joy when I was born, which quite frankly startled the rest of the family when he came out to the waiting room as they thought something was wrong. I cried for a very different reason last week when my son came in to meet us in his ICU room in DC. He taught me so much that I could probably go on all day, but I've limited it to 9 lessons that I've learned from him, which have helped him to live such a great life. My dad will remain top of mind in my memories and through these lessons. Lesson 1. My dad believed that people are all inherently good. What you see from them is a reflection of how you treat them. He was good to all, as to leave no question in other people's minds as to whether he was a good person or not. I genuinely can't imagine anyone having a bad thing to say about him, let alone dislike him as a person. He had such a pure, loving, and good heart. He treated everyone the same, and with respect, every single person. He was kind and caring to everyone. He was humble, and he never felt like he was better than anyone else. He was genuine with people, and so I know that they are not faking it today when they talk about how they feel about him. He was not faking it with all of you. Lesson 2, make others the priority before yourself. My dad was constantly thoughtful and considerate of others, and never selfish. That mattered to him. He showed me the impact you can have on people's lives by being a kind and considerate person. The evidence is here today and in the outpouring of love and support for us over the last 10 days. It gave him great joy to care about and support other people in big and small ways. In fact, I feel he was even being considerate in his passing by giving us the chance to say goodbye properly last week. Lesson 3. He taught me the value of mitzvah, or good deeds, and doing them every day, big and small. He practiced this daily for so long that it became a permanent feature of his way. Lesson 4. Work hard in your career and make an active effort in your relationships. He was very proud that up until last week he had never missed a day of work due to sickness in his life. And I think that was an acceptable excuse. He also worked hard in his relationships. He put a lot of time and energy into developing individual relationships, as you all know, and bringing groups together. He made a huge effort for people on the small things, as a father and as a friend, remembering people's names, birthdays, coming to our sporting events as kids, offering us the last piece of food on a plate. He loved his work and had no plans to retire. He didn't know what else he would do. He loved being in service. So loving what you do is another key takeaway for me. Lesson 5. Similarly, having an actively living life and doing so fully. Do the things you want to do now with the people you want to do them. That way you can pass on without any regrets, as my dad has. He often said to Shira and I, and probably many of you, life is short, kids. Enjoy it. Unfortunately, he was prophetic, but thankfully he heeded his own advice. His life was too short, but he was able to enjoy every day of it. You could always count on him to participate, as Susan mentioned. And as Adis reminded me last week, he always wanted to celebrate the good stuff, as it helped him to be around for the not so good stuff. Lesson 6, value your reputation. Your name means something, which is what his father had taught him. It's important to act with integrity. Lesson 7, you have a responsibility as a man to be a good and loyal father, friend, and family member. It's not a coincidence that he's had the same friends for such a long time, as he stayed loyal to people through tough times and good. His loyalty, of course, also applies to sports teams. And while it's not medically proven, in my mind, I think the stroke was probably caused by the fact that the Heat and the Gators are all suffering right now. His loyalty had no bounds. Lesson 8, be grateful for what you have. My dad was always thankful and commented many times about how blessed he felt. He had more appreciation for his life than anyone I've ever met, and he never complained. He always looked at the positives in a situation, and I truly believe that was one of the keys to his happiness, and probably also his health. Last, and very importantly, have fun and laugh. A lot. One of the lessons that Adisa and I were speaking about in Washington is that you have to make each other laugh. That way you can see the humor in just about anything and get through it. That's one of the things that was so beautiful about their relationship and about the relationship that my dad has had with so many of you. That advice has also been very relevant and helpful to us now, and over the past week has been tremendously guiding for us. He loved bringing a smile to anyone's face. He carried around a fake ID with Elvis's picture on it. Got a real joy out of breaking it out whenever someone ID'd him. And I have to take that, Dad. I know we'll hear from some of his friends later today who will no doubt make us laugh. It's hard not to with that group. When we do, just know that my dad is laughing his big belly laugh wherever he is. For those of you who know it, it's something like this. No, that was my best one. So thank you, Dad, for these life lessons and countless more. You have always been a tremendous inspiration to me. But I'm realizing that you are and were that for so many others too. Some examples from the last week alone. A dear friend of mine who told me that he told his dad he's loved him for the first time in 10 years. Family members of ours who are putting their differences aside to be united here in love for my dad. The doorman at Grove Isle where he lives, who was in tears upon hearing the news. As unbeknownst to any of us, my dad had been a mentor to him and took him around to introduce him when he began there. So if you want to honor my dad and continue his legacy, then I would ask you to think about situations in your own life and ask, what would Stan do? Perhaps you can tell someone close to you that you love them, in particular if it's been a while. Or be kind to a stranger for no reason other than it's a nice thing to do. Or think of someone in your life that Stan would have wanted you to be closer to, and bridge whatever divide exists between you. You don't want to have any regrets when you pass. I take great comfort in knowing that my dad knew exactly how I felt about him when he passed. In closing, I'm so proud that he's my dad. I couldn't have asked for a better father, role model, confidant, and friend. I'm so blessed. I take great pride when someone tells me how great he is, which happens pretty much every time his name is mentioned, or they learn that I'm his son. There is no greater compliment for me than when someone compares me to him. He has been, is, and always will be an inspiration to me, and I will do my best to carry his legacy forward. I'm so proud of you, Dad, for being the person that you were and making the Newmark name mean something to people. He set an extremely high bar for me to live up to as a father, as a man, as a person. It's an incredibly tough act to follow, but thankfully he also armed me with the tools to do so. I am extremely grateful to you for everything, Dad, and always will be. Thank you.